I'm not a big fan of putting a product out to the world. They're trying to promote cricket in the US, and it doesn't look right. For me,
when you say it doesn't look right, so what what do you mean by that specifically?
Well, I mean, it doesn't. You're playing in grounds that the surface of the if you're playing on an artificial wicket somewhere, even in Philadelphia, I mean, it's lovely ground out there, the ground where they play.
Yeah.
But it's not a turf wicket, and they've got various colours of covering on there, and it just doesn't look quite right. It looks too, as the old saying, it looks very village. And
so you're not even talking from a TV production standpoint. You're not talking about general TV production. You're talking about just like the most basic element of cricket. If the ground doesn't look right and you project that on a TV screen.
Exactly. And we're sending that to people. We're asking people to pay rights for us to send that to them. You want to give them a product that looks as close as to what they're expecting to see as normal. Now they have to have their expectations tempered a little bit too. We can't have it's not every place isn't going to look like Eden Gardens, but it's one of those things where it's important, the look of the product that you're putting out there. And some grounds are better than others, let's just say that. Morrisville's not perfect, but it is a whole lot better than some of the other places we visited this summer. And, the final product that we put out there, I've had generally really good response from the type of broadcast that came out of Morrisville, even though at normal cricket level, we were restricted in resources as well. But we try to make it look as good as possible. And the end product is what is going to be judged upon when potential investors are either continually interested or they think, no, this is not worth it and go somewhere else. So that's part of the problem with doing the broadcast for emerging leagues, is that you try and have as good a product as possible to show potential investors and sponsors.
Well, let me ask you this. Morrisville is an incredibly challenging place to do a broadcast because there's no permanent infrastructure there. When you bring your crew in, you've got to bring in all sorts of trucks and try and put in temporary scaffolding towers to get cameras in the right positions and all that kind of thing, right? So even though the production element is probably 10 times more challenging than, say, a fixed venue like Citi Field for the All-Stars, where you've got broadcast infrastructure and the wiring and all that for cameras, in your mind, what do you feel makes for a better production from a cricket standpoint, doing it at a genuine cricket venue like Morrisville, where you have to jump through 20 hoops to set up all the broadcast things that you need to do from your end, or Citi Field, where it looks fancier because it's a stadium, but from a cricket standpoint, it's kind of half-assed in one sense?
Well, there's no question. I'll jump through all the hoops necessary to make it work at Morrisville. I mean, because it looks like a cricket ground, and I'd rather go through the challenges of setting up the broadcast at a venue that looks to be a cricket venue rather than an easier technically speaking set up at a ground that's not a cricket ground. So there's no question about that.
So from that standpoint, as a follow-up, all right, we got the 2024 World Cup coming up. USA is supposed to go host it. There's been talks of potentially games being staged at Oakland Coliseum, especially if the A's jump out of town and before the thing gets demolished, to have one last hurrah.
Yeah.
But from your standpoint, whether as a producer director on a cricket broadcast or as a fan of the sport in general, what do you think would be more appealing or a better projection to the world of cricket in America and what American cricket is capable of sending out to the world and building on? Would you want to see more games being played and broadcast and produced in Morrisville and Lauderhill and potentially one other venue, whether that's Dallas, this Airhog Stadium that they're trying to convert, or one of the Houston venues? Or do you think it would be better to stage games with, Morrisville can only hold maybe 4,000 people, but it's a cricket ground, versus Oakland Coliseum, which could have 55,000 people, but it's going to look very makeshift from a cricket standpoint?
Yeah, it's arguments on both sides there, and I'll accept them both. But from my personal view, I'd rather be watching a game at that level at a cricket ground, because the automatic assumption, if you're looking at, you might have 20 or 30 or 40,000 people, and I don't know if you'll get that at Oakland Coliseum anyway, but if you did, even if you did, the look of it, the first thing people are going to say, well, this is this is a little bit, second rate. If it's in a football ground or a baseball ground, they're not even serious about a cricket ground. Now that's to the casual observer, obviously, and to the cricket fanatic, it's obvious criticism. You're distracted by the fact that it's not a setup for cricket. Now, conversely, as you say, you can't, the limited numbers that can be fit into a ground like Morrisville or upcoming Air Hog Stadium, or even Prairie View, you've got obviously limitations there, but at least it looks like a cricket ground. And, Lauderhill, for all its, warts and all, I've done a few things there over the years. It's, again, not perfect, but it's about as good as you can get at the current level of investment and interest in cricket in the US. And it's a pity, because ICC needs to have grounds, if they're going to host serious games in the US, going forward. They need grounds that can actually pass ICC level. I mean, when we were doing the first weekend of minor league, we did it at Woodley Park in Los Angeles, and I was doing the production from Utah. We had the small truck and our crew going around doing the premium streams. Me and my business partner in Antares Media, Kevin McGee, and I were in Utah producing the show there. And I was in between matches. The production manager said, "Oh, we've got someone here in the truck wants to talk to you." And it was Johnny Grave, who was the CEO of the Cricket West Indies. Yep. And he's an old friend, and he wanted to know why I wasn't at the ground. And we explained to him the reality of doing this and the resources available. And he's very familiar with that, being involved with Cricket West Indies. And he was on a tour around with the ICC people, looking at potential venues for the upcoming World Cup in 2024. And he was at Woodley Park because we were playing the minor league there. And I said, "Well, Johnny, let me guess that Woodley Park won't be on the list." And he goes, "Yeah, that's pretty much true." I said I was surprised to actually see them there. But he was saying, privately, that there hadn't been many that he saw that would make the grade. So it shows you that it's a struggle, but at least they're trying. And I think they need to be applauded for that.